well, this kind of sucks, right? You can't go friggin' live. Then what are you supposed to do? But there we go, right? So you were on TikTok. Everybody saw you on TikTok, and then boom, now you're live on the channel. That so I'm talking to the TikTok live people right behind you. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so rude. I tried to look in the general direction forward and line the green lights up. And with the green lights, I figured, well, all right, there we go. But shit, sometimes it doesn't always work out. So we got Ocean Audio. Thank you, Ocean Audio. I'm going to have to put you back a little bit. Thank you, Ocean Audio, for allowing that software to be downloaded. It works on the Mac that I use it on. And so we have this. You can go by the website, beyondourcomprehension.com. That website is beyondourcomprehension.com. Yeah, it's a long-winded mother, isn't it? But we shortened it. Beyondourcomp.com. You'll see if you go to there, it's coming soon, and that's going to be the blog site. We've got most of the hard drive space there on Beyond Our Comprehension, because that was the original one. It tied in with the YouTube channel Beyond Our Comprehension. Everything was copacetic. When people have to type that shit into an email, they're like, bro, come on. And I'm like, all right. So we got it. Beyond Our Comp, it's there. We just don't have it fully going. Is that all right? Yeah. All right. So thanks coming by Transgender Talk 101. Today's topic is basically just talking about terms. This is the intelligence illumination. We're just going to share some terms with you. So hopefully we can lay down a foundation set of neurons. It's going to be painful. Yes, it will be. Anytime you learn new information, right, there's a level of difficulty to it. It's like, too much information, getting a brain cramp, right? But those are your neurons activating, new neurons activating, new intelligence being laid down in the foundation of your brain. Now, if you don't want me to manipulate your brain, then I suggest that you leave the channel right now, because your brain is going to be changed. That's just the portion of receiving the communication and the message. Hopefully, as the sender, I'm able to communicate that you as the receiver enough. Sorry, I just wanted to put my shoes on here that were falling off. But it is going to be at least tailored. And I like to start that way first, right? I start first. Let's just go ahead and grab the book. Now, which book are you going to go ahead and grab? Well, you can get this one, right? And this is number 24 of Tabor's Medical Cyclopedia. I mean, that's good. It's good. Now, I prefer number 22, right? But there's some differences between 22 and then 24 when it comes to basically what we're talking about is kind of the psychiatric portion of just the human mind, right? Now, we do have another book, and that's the Merck Manual, right? And that is the Merck Manual. It's the 17th edition here. And this one is of diagnosis and therapy. So that's the Merck Manual, Diagnosis and Therapy, right? And we have information that's coming from this, right? Now, 22 is the one I usually reference for tablers. The reason is because I love the tables in here, because they didn't skip on how many, they didn't cut down the pages in here, and the tables are all nice in here, and it's just all good. And these, you can just get these used. You can go and order them used online, and it's a great way to have a series of books. I always tell people you have to have 3 books in your house, minimum 3 books. And that is the Merck Manual, the Tabor's Medical Cyclopedia, and then whatever faith book that is, right? These 2 are on your body, what it needs to be healthy, your body of what goes wrong. Those work in trajectory, right? For the Vitality series, which obviously you can all join into the Vitality series. And then culmination of that is whatever spirituality you have, right? Whatever faith carries you through life's shitty times. And you should have probably more shitty times than great times. That's kind of just the trials and tribulation of life. Tilted and spinning. I like my world like, oh, my life is like my world, tilted and spinning. But there it is, tilted and spinning. We have multiple cups, so I make sure that I write my name on mine, so that way that's the one that I use. Today we're going to talk about, just like you probably saw on the TikTok, if you're following us on TikTok, Beyond Our Comp is the channel there. If you're following Norica on camera on YouTube, then thank you so much. If you're following Norica and Clem on Twitter or TikTok, thank you so much. My wife, male to female transgender. We're going to talk about some of the foundational, some of the things that maybe you don't know, which will cause a little bit of brain ache. But when you come through the illumination on the other side with the terms, you'll have a better understanding. Gender dysphoria, gender identity, gender fluidity, our sex chromosomes. All of this are terms that maybe you're not aware of. So let's do our part here. What else we got to do? What else could we do? We could talk about Afghanistan, right? I think everybody has beaten that one. And it was so sad. Norica, she was just in tears, and she brought me the TikTok, and you see those people that are just falling off the plane, and people are like, oh, this has gone this way. This has gone this way. I'll leave this because my wife thinks that I should go ahead and do transgender talk here and talk about Afghanistan, but that's not what I want to do. I want to talk about the terms and try to keep. But here's the one thing I would say about Afghanistan is nothing ever happens. It's the plan. Nothing ever just happens. It's the plan. And the overall plan is to allow the Taliban to come back, leave the infrastructure there of the weapons, and that way they can maintain that territory with the Russians, because we can't maintain the territory. We can't curb the expansion of Russia and the natural resources and all that, right? Because that's all going on. And if you don't understand that, then you need to look at a lot of the Putin exchanges when he's talking about how they were just surrounded and curtailed and everything, as far as what a bad bitch she was, Clinton, that went around there, right? And socked them all in with those missile defense systems, right? And a lot of that is, dude, we can't be present in that fucking area. We're not there, right? We're here. But the amount of impact that we've had and just funding or being in, I mean, we basically are just repeating the same thing that we did when we were funding the Taliban against the Russians in the first place. The Cold War, we just escaped from the region. We left a vacuum. We left a void. And then, of course, people were all fucking upset, and we're doing it again, right? But it's not a mistake. Leaving all the equipment behind, leaving everything, all the stuff that will be turned over to the Taliban. That's not a mistake, people. That's planned. That's planned. We aren't going to be in a military force against Russia and the expansion and the natural resources. And you have to understand that territory is power, money is power, power, natural resources are power. And nothing went on here that wasn't planned, right? That void and that escape and that vacuum, how we erupted ourselves out of Afghanistan as the U.S. military presence there, that was not a mistake. It was planned that way. Leaving everything behind, that's planned that way. How many times do you think people make mistakes in a long-term plan like this? Don't be fooled, right? If it baz like a goat, eats like a goat, destroys like a goat, runs like a goat, it's probably a goat. And that's just where I'll leave it. Could have things done better? Only in your eyes, because you don't know their master plan. You don't know the plan. You're not the military industrial complex. You don't have any say in this. But it wasn't a mistake. It was always planned to be like that. The equipment always planned And now you just have to watch. You'll have to watch the region, but look at the engagement between Afghan and Russia and the natural resources there, and see how that'll play out. And that equipment left, right? All that equipment left, it's going to be put to use. Nothing's made as a mistake. There's only the people that have to be in the pond, in the light of it. And those are the individuals that have to play their parts, but they have no say in the overall master plan of that. That's just what it is. It's just the way it works. It's shitty. Sorry, those Afghan people. I'm so sorry for you all. How sad is that? That we do the repetitive things as a national power like that. Americans, only you can stop that. Only you can basically just change out the whole core infrastructure of your government. You had to go like that county by county to do it, right? But there's never a war gone into that they didn't want to go into, and if they couldn't force it, they fabricated it. It's just the way it is. Now, let's get past that. My deepest regard for those individuals that suffer everything because of our policies. It's a shame. All right. That horse is no more. The soapbox is put away. Now let's just turn to what this is, right? We're just doing a host of what? Well, a host of terms. A host of terms. First one, we're going to go to our Merck manual, and I can see how this can be interpreted, right, by different people, because you will all have a different personal point of view of that. So all I'm doing is relaying the information here so you can have a better idea of the individuals who live the life as transgender individuals. First and foremost, and I think it is understated, and unfortunately, I think a lot of it is just not talked about because there's no deep funding into the investigation of the sex chromosomes, plus the brain, plus how nurturing goes, all to the individual of how they basically fit into society, right? It all takes a collection. It's like, all right, let's say you know how to make a drink, right? Vodka, cran, or whatever. In your mind, or let's say you have a choice of beers, and some are like 1% alcohol and the others are like 8%. Just as there are a variety of strengths in alcohol drinks out there, right? You add 7-Up this much and just a drop of vodka, and that's pretty dilute, right? All the way up to where you add a drop of 7-Up and the rest is vodka. And that whole spectrum, right? Just as there are colors in the visual spectrum, a broad range of it, when you want to click that different font, right? You want to click that different font. You're like, well, I want black, or I want blue. Well, wait, there's like 50 shades of blue. Oh, if I advance a little bit, there's this whole honeycomb of shapes in here, right? There's all gradations of the visual spectrum. There's all gradations into how strong you can make a drink, right? How that drink affects different kind of people. All of these things are factors, and that was not talked about as much is the influence of the sex chromosomes on that. Have you ever been into a family where you have a real stern grandparent, right? And the other one's kind of soft, right? They're different. Maybe they came from two different hard lives of background. Well, if you look in biology and you look in the studies of twins and genealogy and the hardships and stuff, you can see that environmental changes or environmental stressors can affect the actual sex chromosomes almost as much as the different gradations you can make in the strength of a drink. And those impacts, those influences, have influences on the outside identity, the outer identity, the gender identity. They contribute to the gender dysphoria, which may cause an imbalance in the gender one is born with and the identity to which that individual identifies with. So much so that the biology that the person is born with is not the identity in their gender that they identify with as far as who makes them complete, in what world, in what facets, how they act, how they're able to interact in the world as a cog, as a social functioning, uh, independent cog that we all need to be with our own individual mindset, our own values, right? Our own experiences. And that sex chromosomes, the environment, all that our families, our generations go through, have a difference in the ability to influence and affect the sex chromosomes and that individual to where their preference becomes the term called gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria, if you are in the transgender world, a lot of people know that when you go about getting your surgery scheduled, the procedure scheduled, you usually meet with, and one of the precursors through getting covered by insurance is you meet with the psychiatry and they go over basically how you feel as an individual, your not your gender biology, but your gender identity, what you feel comfortable living as, and what and how long you've been living as that certain person. So that way you can make the transition. You can make the transition into your body's identity, which matches your mind's identity. And we just don't have enough funding into the research to where people are allowed to have this kind of intelligence illumination where we can talk about the hypothesis that not only nurture, but it is also a variety of genealogy. So it's generations, our ancestors' generations, our great grandparents, right? Those that come and affect what it is on the outcome of the new generations being born today. Nurture goes along with it. Personal preference goes in. The whole point of it is there is a foundation of information that is lacking in the dialogue when we are talking about transgender individuals. And it is not a disorder anymore. Since 1973, homosexuality, right? Homosexuality was defined not as a disorder anymore, but it is part of the mainstream, right? Now you can push that homosexuality into becoming the individual that you align with most in your brain thinking, and then have that portrayed in the outside to where you can live a very comfortable life. I was looking at one of the writings that I had done, and it talks about pain and emotional pain, the frustration and the hurt of pain. And a lot of the individuals, I was lucky enough to sit through a few seasons of the show Pose, right? You can get it on Netflix, and you can look back because it's set in the ages, right? Back in 70s and 80s, 90s, where you can look back on what the societal pressures were on those individuals who were dealing with the fact that they were feeling like they were somebody else than who they were born with, and that identity or their sexual preference were different. And that pain and frustration a lot of times it alludes to suicide. And I want to think of people. I want to think for a second. If there's anyone out there, who identifies themselves and their ideology so much with a doctrine that they believe they're so much in the right that a person should have to deal and cope with that pain, frustration, and hurt because they can't transition to the person that they identify with. I don't think any person on the globe holds themselves as a power that they have the right to mandate that over anyone else. Maybe you got people that joke in a bunch of friends or however it is, because people always talk shit, they're stupid and they're assholes. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But you put somebody alone in a room with another person, you leave them there to collect their thoughts, and they leave the societal pressures alone, and they understand their humanity. They're able to sit there with their faults, question their own purpose and reality, life's choices and life's great plan. And if they're true to themselves, they'll understand how little we all really know, how great the gap is in our ignorance. But I don't think anybody on the planet would intentionally want someone. I mean, what if you had to sit in that room and that person was going through that hurt, and the only way out of it was to either let them live their life or let them commit suicide? And your convictions, your ideology drives that. So you would have to be witness. Could you stand being alone with a body in a room because your convictions, your doctrine, your ideology, your thinking is so much superior to them? This is just intelligent illumination. It's just the fact that there are so many factors that influence how a person chooses to live that are more beyond their control, that we really don't have a right as a society to inflict the pain, the hurt, and the harm on them, because most of us are not privy to knowledge. They're not. We have biases, we're built in the biases, and we carry those biases, and we feel superior in our ideology and the doctrine. So superior that we will use our voices to champion what makes us secure, when really it's just not knowing ourselves and us not knowing which causes the ignorance and the hate. Gender dysphoria is just that. It's gender dysphoria brought on by an imbalance of multiple factors, just as strong as a drink can be, or as weak as a drink could be, or as many colors that you could choose for your font and more. It is the hardest thing to come to terms with because it is something that may be outside of our foundational upbringing. And it may be that for ourselves, we love to live in the ignorance of darkness. And because when we are there, we are more secure because the world in itself is a place of unknown purpose, unknown reality, and sometimes unknown choice and control. But that's not the case that it has to be. That's really a lot about that is there are so many people in the transgender community that if if you're transphobic, whatever, they're fine with you just staying away from them. It's not a community to dip your toe into, right? Now, Norica, she didn't transition until kind of late, right? Some of that is family pressure. Some of that is just, the ability to not hurt anymore, to have to overcome the pain, the frustration, the hurt, because there are influences working on an individual, which causes them the gender dysphoria between what they were born with and what they choose to live their life with. You can do worse by go ahead and looking into some of this yourself. If the main thing is that it just illuminated a little bit to what I don't think is talked about enough as far as the influence in our generations and our environment that our ancestors have gone through, and that indeed can make an emphasis onto the sex chromosomes, and those sex chromosomes can have a full tilt, a potency or weakness, or however it does, but it is never the individual's problem that they've done anything wrong. It is just how biology works. That's life. But sometimes we want to live in the ignorance of life because some things that are out there that are the math that proves us wrong, or just through the dialogue and the magic of communication causes our brain to hurt. No. Hey, it's all right. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning and you're going to be the same person you are. You're going to use whatever coffee there is, right? You're going to have your tea. You're going to eat your breakfast. You're going to love who you are. You're going to love the people you're with, your kids, your dog, all that. And only for about 30 minutes here have you had to think a little bit and get some neurons activated. And you may have to go back a couple of times and go, well, fuck this asshole, right? But that's okay, because you have the ability to do that, say that, and live your life that you want. We have the ability to live our life that we want. Doesn't mean that we're choosy. Sometimes it just means that we have to protect ourselves a little bit more, because there are so many who feel that they have the right, the superiority to speak out and to tell you how to live. But what we always say is, you do you, and we'll do we. Thanks so much for coming by Transgender Talk 101. It was short, sweet. Now goodbye.